The mathematics afford no more absolute demonstrations than the sentiment of his art yields to the artist. He not only believes, but positively knows that such and such apparently arbitrary arrangements of matter constitute and let alone constitute the true beauty. His reasons, however, have not been yet matured into expression. It remains for a profound analysis of the world yet seen, fully to investigate and express them. Nevertheless, he is confirmed in his instinctive opinions by the voice of all his brethren. Let a quote-unquote composition be defective. Let an emendation be wrought in its mere arrangement of form. Let this emendation be submitted to every artist in the world. By each will it's necessary be admitted. Necessity be admitted. And even far more than this, in remedy of its defective composition, each insulated member of the fraternity would have suggested the identical emendation. I repeat that in landscapes, arrangements alone is the physical nature susceptible of exaltation, and that, therefore, her susceptibility of improvement at this one point was a mystery that I have been unable to solve. My own thoughts on this subject had arrested in the idea that the primitive intention of nature would have so arranged the earth's surface as to have fulfilled at all points man's sense of perfection, in the beautiful, the sublime, or the picturesque. But that this primitive intention had been frustrated by the known geological disturbances of form and color grouping, and the correction or allaying of which lies the soul of art. The force of this idea is much weakened, however, by the necessity which it involved, considering the disturbances abnormal and unadapted to any purpose. It was Ellison who suggested that they were prognostic of death. He thus explained, admit the earthly immortality of men to have been the first intention. We have then the primitive arrangement of the earth's surface, adapted to its blissful estate, as not existent but designed. The disturbances were preparations for a subsequently conceived deathful condition. Now, said my friend, what we regard as exaltation of the landscape may be really such, as respects only the moral or human point of view. Each alteration of the natural scenery may possibly affect a blemish in the picture, if we can suppose this picture viewed at large, in mass, from some point distant from the earth's surface, although not beyond the limits of its atmosphere. It is easily understood that what might improve the closely scrutinized detail may be at the same time injure general or more distinctly observed effect. There may be a class of beings, human once, but now indivisible to humanity, to whom from afar our disorder may seem order, our picturesque. In a word, the earth angels, for whose scrutiny more especially than our own, and for whose depth refined appreciation of the beautiful, may have been set in array by God the wide landscape gardens of the hemispheres. In the course of discussion, my friend quoted some passages from a writer on landscape gardening who has been supposed to have well treated this theme. There are properly but two styles of landscape gardening, the natural and the artificial. One seeks to recall the original beauty of the country by adapting its means to the surrounding scenery, cultivating trees in harmony with the hills or plains of the neighboring land, detecting and breeding into practice those nice relations of size, proportion, and color which hid from the common observer are revealed everywhere to the experienced student of nature. The result of the natural style of gardening is seen here rather in the absence of all defects and incongruities, in the prevalence of a healthy harmony and order, than in the creation of any special wonders or miracles. The artificial style is as many varieties as there are different tastes to gratify. It has a certain general relation to the various styles of the building. There are the stately avenues of retirements of Versailles, Italian terraces, and various mixed Old English style which bears some relation to domestic Gothic or English Elizabethan architecture. Whatever may be said against the abuses of the artificial landscape gardening, a mixture of pure art in the garden scene adds to it a great beauty. This is partly pleasing to the eye, but by a show of order and design, and are partly moral. A terrace, with an old moss-covered balustrade, calls up at once to the eye the fair forms that have passed there in other days. The slightest exhibition of art is an evidence of care and human interest. From what I have already observed, said Ellison, you will understand that I reject the idea here expressed of recalling the original beauty of the country. The original beauty is never so great as that which may be introduced. Of course, everything depends on the selection of a spot with the capabilities. What is said about detecting and bringing into practice nice relations of size, proportion, and color is one of those mere vaguenesses of speech which serve to veil inaccuracy of thought. The phrase quoted may mean anything or nothing, and guise in no degree. That the true result of the natural style of gardening is seen rather in the absence of all defects and incongruities than the creation of any special wonders or miracles. Is a proposition better suited to the groveling apprehension of the herd than to the fervid dreams of the man of genius? The negative merit suggested appertains to that hobbling criticism which, in letters, would elevate Addison into apotheosis. In truth, while that virtue which consists in the mere avoidance of vice appeals directly to the understanding, and can thus be circumscribed in rule, the loftier virtue which flames in creation can be apprehended in its results alone. Rule applies to the but to the merits of denial, to the excellencies which refrain. Beyond these, the critical art can but suggest. We may be instructed to build a Cato, but we are in vain told how to conceive a Parthenon or an Inferno. The thing done, however, the wonder accomplished, and the capacity for apprehension becomes universal. The sophists of the negative school, who, through inability to create, have scoffed at creation, are now found the loudest in applause. What, in its chrysalis condition of principle, affronted their demure reason, never fails in its maturity of accomplishment to extort admiration from their instinct of beauty. The author's observations on the artificial style, continued Ellison, are less objectionable. The mixture of pure art in this garden scene adds to it a great beauty. This is just as also is the reference to the sense of human interest. The principle expressed is incontrovertible, but there may be something beyond it. There may be an object in keeping with the principle, an object unattainable by the means ordinarily possessed by individuals, which, if attained, would lend a charm to the landscape garden far surpass that which a sense of merely human interest could bestow. A poet, having very unusual pecuniary resources, might retain the necessary idea of art or culture, or, as our author expresses it, of interest. So imbues his designs at once with extent and novelty of beauty as to convey the sentiment of spiritual interference. It will be seen that in bringing about such result, he secures all the advantages of interest or design, while relieving his work of the harshness or technicality of the worldly art. In the most rugged of wildernesses, in the most savage of the scenes of pure art, there is the apparent art of a creator, yet this art is apparent to reflection only. In no respect has it the obvious force of a feeling. Now, let us suppose that the sense of the Almighty designed to be one step depressed, to be brought into something like harmony or consistency with the sense of human art, to form an intermedium between the two. Let us imagine, for example, a landscape whose combined vastness and definitiveness, whose united beauty, magnificence, and strangeness shall convey the idea of care or culture or superintendence on the part of beings superior, yet akin to humanity. Then the sentiment of interest is preserved, while the art intervolved is made to assume the air of the intermediate or secondary nature, a nature which is not God, nor an emanation from God, but which is still nature and in the sense of handiwork of the angels that hover between man and God. It was in devoting his enormous wealth to the embodiment of a vision as such as this, and the free exercise of the open air ensured by the personal superintendence of his plans, in the unceasing object which these plans afforded, in the highest spirituality of the object, in the contempt of the ambition which enabled him truly to feel, and the perennial springs with which it gratified, without possibility of satiating, that one master passion of his soul, the thirst for beauty. Above all, it was in the sympathy of a woman, not unwomanly, whose loveliness and love enveloped his existence in the purple atmosphere of paradise, that Ellison thought to find, and found, exemption from the ordinary cases of humanity, with a far greater amount of positive happiness than ever glowed in the rapt daydreams of de Stael. I despair of conveying to the reader any distinct conception of the marvels with which my friend actually did accomplish. I wish to describe, but I am disheartened by the difficulty of description, and hesitate between details and generality. Perhaps the better course will be to unite the two in their extremes. Mr. Ellison's first step regarded, of course, the choice of the locality, and scarcely had he commenced thinking on this point when the luxuriant nature of the Pacific Islands arrested his attention. In fact, he had made up his mind for a voyage to the South Seas, when a night reflection induced him to abandon the idea. "Were I misanthropic," he said, "such a locale would suit me. The thoroughness of its insulation and seclusion, and the difficulty of ingress and egress, would in such case be the charm of charms, but as yet I am not to moan. I wish the composure, but not the depression of solitude. There must remain with me a certain control over the extent and duration of my repose. There will be frequent hours in which I shall need the sympathy of the poetic in what I have done. Let me seek, then, a spot not far from a populous city, whose vicinity also will be best enable me to execute my plans. In search of a suitable place so situated, Ellison traveled for several years, and I was permitted to accompany him. 1,000 spots which I was enraptured, he rejected without hesitation, for reasons which satisfied me in the end that he was right. We came at length to an elevated tableland of wonderful fertility and beauty, affording a panoramic prospect very little less in extent than that of Etna, and in Ellison's opinion, as well as my own, surpassing the far-famed view from that mountain in all the true elements of the picturesque.